everybody, Zoe Buckley here from Learning Boosters, and we are here for today's Wisdom Wednesday. And today's Wisdom Wednesday is a little bit different because today I'm actually interviewing Hayley Thiele. Hayley is the developer of Mummy Matcher. So I'm going to hand it over to Hayley to tell us a bit more about who she is, her family, and how did Mummy Matcher come about. Hi, Hayley.
Hi, Zoe. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you are very welcome. So tell me a bit about you.
Who am I? Okay, so I'm Hayley. I live in regional South Australia, and I am the mum of 3 beautiful girls as well as a stepdaughter. So we have 4 girls in the house at any one time, which my husband is very lucky with all those hormones.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I live in regional SA, and I have, my girls are quite young. They're 5, 3 and 18 months. And Isabel is almost 12. She's 12 on Wednesday, so which we've heard about all weekend, don't you worry. So I guess here to talk to you today a bit about how Mummy Matcher has come about and all that sort of stuff. So Mummy Matcher is a service that connects mums who've faced adversity and whose motherhood experience has sort of maybe taken a veer off the beaten track to the road less travelled. So it came about as my youngest daughter was born with what's called a micro-deletion, which means she's missing the most minute piece of DNA on her chromosomes, on one of her chromosomes, and that's resulted in quite a few challenges, I would say, if putting it nicely, in the last 18 months. So she's quite medically complex, but she's also very, your normal, typical developing child as well. So it came about because I was stuck in hospital 4 hours from home a lot, and I know that a lot of your community could relate to this. Those horrible chairs. I was only talking to some medical mums last night about how the pillows, how they're so noisy, and they can wake up that you've just got that baby to sleep, and you move and the chairs and the pillows and all that. And I was just incredibly lonely. So I had an amazing support network, don't get me wrong. But I craved someone to talk to that had also slept on those chairs and just got it, where maybe you become a little bit desensitized to a point of all the medical procedures and things like that. So, a day surgery sort of becomes it's just life, and so it's nice to talk to your people. I'm very big on people being able to find their tribe and build their tribe. And I couldn't find her. So I had Facebook groups and all that sort of stuff. Don't get me wrong, they were great, but I wanted something more intimate, something more personal. And there's always someone worse off than you. So I was really conscious of going onto a Facebook group and blurting my biggest fears out about my child and all the what ifs, because we still don't know what the future holds for Pippa in terms of her cognitive development and things like that. So when you've had 2 children who followed the typical development path, this was a really big unknown for us. So and so I couldn't find her. And then I did find someone just out of luck. Basically, I stalked her in the hospital, and and we were making a coffee in the parent room one day, and I literally was like, do you want to be my friend? I feel like... and we've become just the bestest of friends. We call each other, she's my best medical mum friend. And it got to the point where the hospital was asking me to talk to mums who were new to the ward and, might have been struggling and that sort of stuff, because they knew I was an open book and very happy to talk to everyone and anyone. And when you first come into those baby wards, you're surrounded by a lot of sick babies, and that's the thing, is they're all under 12 months at the start, so they're not well, and a lot of them don't actually have parents with them or caregivers, so that's a whole other story.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I was like, this is not enough. Like, we need more, you know, like you need something to just talk to someone. You don't need to go and meet with them physically, because that's actually really hard, you know. People with COVID and all that sort of stuff at the moment, a lot of medical families, this is their life anyway, because the common cold can be really detrimental for medically complex kids.
Yes.
And all that. So, you know, I was talking to a mum the other day who, she has cystic fibrosis, and she goes, this is my life. You know, I have hand sanitizer everywhere, you know,
Yep.
winter's here, I don't go anywhere. Yeah, so it's really, it's just different. It's not better, it's not worse, but it's just different. And so finding those people became a real, I guess, passion of mine. And then I guess a bit of my background is I've worked with women in many different walks of life, but mainly who've sort of been victims of crime, or, you know, sexually assaulted and DV and things like that. That's sort of been my, like, at the start of my career. And working with women, you learn everyone's got a story, and everyone's got a unique, you know, factor that's happened to them in their life, and some want to talk and some don't. But I want to bring these people together regardless of their unique situations, and that's sort of how Mummy Matcha started.
Okay, fantastic. That sounds awesome. And as I said to you earlier when we were having a chat before we recorded, my son was 10 weeks early. He's now nearly 22.
Yeah.
And I wish someone like you had been around when I was going through all that, because I was very much on my own. My husband went back to work, basically. Yeah. And I didn't have my parents here, and I didn't have that support. So that support is your main helping people in that time of crisis, I guess.
Yeah.
So how do you match people up? What's the system for that? How do you do that?
Yeah, so people come to our website, obviously, and I've built a comprehensive getting to know you form. And it is really comprehensive, but basically the more information that I get from people, the easier it is to match them. So they fill out the getting to know you form and pay our fee, and then they wait for the magic to happen. So the form then comes to me, and then I've got my database, and sort of, you know, I think one of the real strengths of Mummy Matcha is that it's real people matching people. It's not an algorithm. So I can...
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I make the connections, and then the connections sent via an email with a introduction to each other, like with talking points and a brief summary of the situation that each person's been in and why I've connected them. And I find the feedback from that has just been, people are like, oh, it's so great to actually have a bit of background and be able to actually initiate those, you know, initial conversations. But what I've found is it's working because these women are ready to talk. Yes. And that's also the difference, I think. I hear this a lot from mums who've lost children. I've had quite a few of them through Mummy Matcha. And some are either very much at the beginning, you know, they've very recently lost their child, or they're a bit further down the track. But either way, they're ready to talk and connect with someone about their loss, which I think is the real strength in it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Having lost 2 babies before Gareth, I can relate to that too. Yeah. So that's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about your day, because you've got 3 very vivacious girls, plus a 4th that comes in and stays with you, plus you've got a child with some special needs, and you work part-time. So that just blows my mind. I mean, how do you manage?
Lots of wine.
You have a partner who helps also, but yeah, go ahead, tell us.
Lots of wine.
They like.
No, so my husband and I, we are a well-oiled machine, I must admit, and I have a lot of support. So I have to sort of say, first up, I am so lucky. So my mum is my childcare for one, so that makes, I'm sorry to anyone watching this who wants to throw something at the screen, but trust me, I know how lucky I am. So I think transitioning back to work, and you know, I'm really upfront in the things term of I've never wanted to be a stay-at-home mum. Hats off to the mythical creatures who are stay-at-home mums. It's just not my cup of tea. And so it was really confronting, and Pippa, who's my youngest, she's really caused a lot of self-reflection and, you know, a lot of growing from me, because I have to admit, prior to her being born, having a child with special features and who was medically complex, I thought of that as my worst nightmare. Whereas now I look at it and I go, there is so much joy and so much, you know, so I sort of feel I'm in a real space at the moment of really challenging those thoughts and reflecting on it. And yeah, but I won't go into that. So a typical day is the girls do get up very, very, very early.
Oh, dear.
So we're talking like they're all up probably by 5:30 in the morning, and ready to go. So Pippa and I tend to go for a walk in the mornings.
Yep.
I rug her up because the only place she doesn't whinge is in the pram or in the car or when she's being held. So I rug her up and we go for a walk, and she tends to go back to sleep because God forbid lying in bed and having a cuddle, you could go back to sleep in the warmth. So exercise has been a huge thing for my mental health. And honestly, it's gotten me through, I think, these last 18 months, to be honest. So exercise is a bit of a non-negotiable for me, and my husband knows that as well. And he'll, if I haven't been for a run or something for a couple of days, he'll be like, "When was the last time you exercised? How about you go for a run?"
That's fantastic.
So, yeah, we do that, and then when we get home, hubby has sort of started the breakfast and he packs the school lunch boxes and that sort of stuff. Pippa is she's got a nasogastric tube, and so she has all her fluids via the tube, and she's got sort of some quirks with food and things, so we try and give her breakfast. Most of it ends up being thrown at us. And then we do the drop-offs. I then come home. I work from home, so that's been fun with having the kids home. And then work, and then it's pick them up and it's go. And now, I think that's what I was saying before, having a child with additional features. So there's a lot of therapy appointments. There's a lot of doctor's appointments. You know, just last week, we went for a checkup, which I thought was going to be really simple, but I've learned that there's no such thing with Pippa. So now I allow a full day for just a normal paediatrician appointment. Because last week we found that she's had a collapsed lung for 3 months, you know, and just those things, you know. But you know, yeah, that's Pippa. You know, whatever. So I've started Mummy Matcha to try and just get that bit more flexibility, because, you know, like last week, I think we had speech, we had hydro, physio, peds, chest x-rays, you know, and that's just 1 week. And then trying to juggle that around the girls and, you know, dancing, which we haven't got at the moment, but previously there was dancing and netball and all that sort of stuff. So we just don't really stop.
And you don't really have a normal day, do you? What we might perceive as a normal day. Yeah. And balancing act, because it's really good that because I've found with some families with a child with disability, the other children will miss out.
Yeah.
So it's really good to have that balance there where your mainstream kids are being able to go out and do those mainstream things as well. So that's a really, really good balance. Yeah. And
I think too, it was we were never going to let Pippa's special features hold her back. So when we got back from hospital the first time, you know, that first weekend we went and did a hike, you know, and so we took the tube, we took the pump, you know, and we were like, well, this is our life now, and we are not going to stop that. So we've got photos of us sitting on top of beautiful Flinders Ranges in South Australia, and she's having a tube feed. And then when she went onto oxygen, which was a little bit later down the track, I must admit that was the first time I really wobbled. And I just did an interview last week where I said that was when the oxygen's what broke me. Because I was sitting in the oxygen training. I hadn't cried or anything before then. And they brought out the canister. Now, I know my fellow oxygen mums will hear me here, but I remember sitting there and they brought out this massive canister and they're like, okay, so this is your travel size. And I'm like, travel?
Oh,
I've
dear.
got 2 kids under, at that point, 4. We go to play groups, we go walking, we're a very active family. How the bloody hell am I supposed to carry that with a nappy bag and a child that won't go in the pram and all that? Like, it really spun me out.
Yeah.
But we just learnt how to adapt, and which everyone does, and you just do it. So then we were hiking I'd hike with Pippa on my front. Odie, we called the oxygen Odie. It just made it more relatable for the girls.
Yes, great.
Odie on my back, and we just did it.
Awesome. It's great.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, you know, and I don't want to paint it that there was no grieving, you know, and that there was no shit, this is really hard, you know, because we still have those days, don't get me wrong, but it was just the thing I think we were lucky that she wasn't our first baby in a way, because it was that thing on the girls do to a point. So my mainstream girls, they do miss out on a lot to a point. You know, we used to do a lot of camping and all that, and we just haven't really taken that back up yet with Pippa because, you know, bonfires and oxygen.
Yes.
Sometimes. And then for those of you who don't have O2 kids, the home bottles that you have for oxygen are the same size as basically your gas bottles, you know, like your actual gas bottles. So you have a sack truck that you take that around the house with. So you're carrying a baby and literally a sack truck.
Right.
So doing that outside is really tough, you know, trying to do that. And then you have to do the calculations for your traveling canisters. So, okay, if we go away overnight, I get, say, 4 hours out of a canister. How many small canisters do I need to take? Like, it just becomes a bit of a process. But, you know, you just do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like I'm ready.
Yeah, that's all right. So how can people get in touch with you?
Okay, so we are on all the socials. So it's literally just, well, not all the socials, Facebook and Instagram are our main. So it's literally just look for Mummy Matcher, or we have our website, which is www.mummymatcher.com.au. I'm really open. I'm happy for people to PM me on Facebook or anything like that. I'm an open book, and basically my ultimate thing is to help reduce the feelings of isolation that so many people can feel. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Hayley, for coming on
and
joining us today.
Yeah.
And remember, folks, you can get hold of Hayley through Mummy Matcher. And I hope that's given you a little bit to think about how the mental health issues that you may be having, how it might be able to help you. Hayley will match you up with somebody you can chat with online, particularly in this day and age with this virus and things going around. So thank you so much for joining us today, Hayley, and all the best with it all.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.